The left image is natural light, the right image is strobe. Now, interestingly enough,
I'm going to be over here.
we only took 3 shots of each look.
Hang on, which is which?
Left is natural.
That's natural.
Yeah.
I thought this was natural.
And it's interesting because the right source is higher, so it looks more like a higher light, and there's more background in the strobe than there was in the natural light, even though she was the same distance from the backdrop.
Are these the ones you retouched yesterday in Alien Skin?
And so I recorded a video of us retouching these so that you can have them. So amazingly, we only actually took 3 shots of each one. So we could have, had Felix had this up in more time, I think he could have nailed it within, probably 5 minutes, just wrapping a little bit more, changing direction a little bit more. Like he did that so, quickly, really. And it's such a beautiful example of, I could shoot that at 8 o'clock at night. And I've never been able to get anything like that in natural light.
You could shoot that if you had children and you couldn't work when they were awake and running around. Like that's one of the things actually someone told me yesterday. I've got kids, I can finally shoot when they're in bed. I can finally shoot, around them.
Yeah, and play. And night shoots can be fun. You can make it fun, especially if you have a crew. And I just like that idea. The second image was Katie, natural light on the left, strobe on the right. There is so much more detail in these images than you can see on the screen. I opened them in RAW and I enlarged them on the video for the retouching. I figured that the strobe was going to beat me in one great area, and that was at 125 shutter speed. It was going to be sharper. It was going to get more detail in the eyes, sharper on each eyelash. I was at 30 to 40 on my shutter speed, down as low as. I got down to 30 once, 40 and 50. And I also was at 640 ISO, so I was shooting higher ISO with more grain. When you see the enlargement on the eyes, the strobe does beat me in detail. And it was really quite interesting. The strobe images were softer than the natural light images. There was more detail in the background in all of the strobe images. And I feel very confident that I can create strobe images that look like my style of natural light after seeing this.
Do you think it's because all that light bouncing around in the back, it made it actually softer than even what was coming from outside?
Yeah, it was softer than what I was getting, but then we also had the really high stud.
Yeah.
And so we're getting a little bit of bounce over the top,
yeah,
which the natural light's only coming from here. If we'd had a light leak at the top, we may have got a similar softness in the background, or if I'd put more of a reflector on my back. But the truth is when this come up, the catch lights are almost identical, and only through the numbering system could you really instantly tell which were mine and which ones were Felix's, which I really loved. And yeah, really awesome. The next one was this. This is the only time where the strobe outdid the natural light. I feel like it was better on the background. There was too much light. I could have put a little bit more of a blocker on the background or pulled the background away from the light a little bit more, but then I couldn't because my light source started here and my background can't go back any further, so I am limited because he can move his lights, but I can't move the window.
I have full control.
I can move away from the window, but only as far as there's a wall there, and if I'm in a small room, I can't. So the strobe outperformed the natural light here beautifully, and the catch light is stronger in Felix's image. But look at the shadow on her chest, look at the shadow under her nose and left cheek and chin. Exists exactly the same direction and still very marginal, but a much sharper image in the natural light. The next image, this is where the natural light outperformed the strobe. Again, I only took 2 shots of this guy in the strobe. I feel like a little bit more jimmying and we could have nailed it.
And where left is natural and right is okay?
Always, yeah.
Always.
So there is definitely a natural sort of leak coming into that image on the left side, which has such a beautiful quality, and there's definitely more of a strobe look through his face on the right, but again, we were time crunch, so I feel like it's good. I'm definitely more attracted to the left image here. just because it has such a beautiful mood onto the body and the bronzeness.
There's more contrast in it, isn't there, in this face? Yeah.
This was natural versus strobe versus speed. The natural and strobe outclass the speed.
Sorry, the Speedlight's on the right.
Yes.
The very right. And in
Yes.
the middle is the strobe.
Yes. So the natural light and the strobe compete very strongly. The middle image had a lot more detail in the background. The natural light image was beautiful. The strobe image was very beautiful. There's a very subtle difference that exists in the shadow underneath Katie's chin that makes the strobe give it more of a fashion commercial quality than the natural light does. And the Speedlight definitely performed. It doesn't quite compare, but it definitely, if that's what you're starting with, if that's what you're learning with, if that's what you're trying with, if you could pull off a shoot in a Speedlight with what you have and then afford with that first sale to go and buy yourself a strobe, you've already upgraded your career instantaneously with one job.